and greeting us on the terrestrial stations, social media, TV, Fire Stick, Roku, and a number of other places. It is Robert Johnson, the third House Minority Leader. Good morning, sir. How are you? It's good to have you.
Good morning. Good morning, Paul. Good to be here.
Looking good. I like that bookcase in the back there. Did
Hey,
you
well,
arrange that? Did you arrange that,
no,
or somebody else decorated?
no, it's a constant. It's not a decoration. I read.
It's a work in progress. Then is that what you're saying?
I like books. Let it be noted. I like books. So.
I do want to ask you this. You heard just a few seconds ago the Speaker pro tem giving his analysis of what went down on Friday. Your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are simply the legislature is doing its job. There's something that the Speaker pro tem, the rest, and members of the House, and apparently the members of the Senate and the Lieutenant Governor feel like it's our job to appropriate, spend, and administer the funds that the federal government sends down here. That's our job, and that's all we did.
I think the major contention of the public out there may be this. Can the legislature, if the immediacy of getting these funds out to where they need to go out to is in any form or fashion in the emergency status, can the legislative process do this with that immediacy?
Yeah, well, look, this is the immediacy. We are facing a pandemic. The funds that were sent down are for a current and present issues that we have to deal with, but they're also for ongoing and foreseeable issues that we'll have to deal with going forward, like distance learning in schools, how we're going to provide certain things for them. So in keeping with that, we left $100 million available to the governor in case there's a sudden, quick emergency. Now, so far, the state, in terms of dealing with this crisis, the governor and the state itself, in the funds that, before we got into federal funds, we spent close to $230 million in 2 months. We have enough emergency funds to deal with something that's, according to the governor, we are beginning to plateau. And I'm not sure that that's absolutely correct, but we have emergency funds available and we can do that. And I mean, we got a rainy day fund that whenever the governor needs to do something that's an emergency, we can do that. But it's very important that we create an infrastructure going forward, currently and going forward, that we deal effectively with the new normal.
What happens now? Because he's got 5 days to go on and sign this or veto it.
Or veto it, yeah.
And if that happens, go ahead.
If that happens, then we come back and hopefully have the votes to override the governor's veto and go to work for the people of the state of Mississippi.
One way or the other, I guess what I'm asking is all this going to be settled by the time you guys come back at May the 18th, so you'll have that money, and then you begin the process of putting it where
it will be
wrangling over it.
Yeah, Paul. It will be settled if the governor doesn't veto the bill, and we get to work in a normal legislative process where the three branches of government work together with the governor to take care of the people of the state of Mississippi. It is not complicated. The issues that we have to face are looking right at us. In fact, we sat in a room with people that we have gone back and forth with. I mean, Republicans and Democrats sat in a room, and we could hardly find anything we disagree with in terms of solving this problem going forward. I mean, we literally are on the same page going forward.
I think it happens.
We're working.
I understand that. I think it happens if you know politics too. It's not indigenous of just of this legislative session and us. Any state where you have a lieutenant governor that ascends to the office of governor, it's going to bring some baggage, some personalities when he or she was governor. You think some of that's part of it?
Well, part of it is that the lieutenant governor, in all fairness to him, spent 8 years. I mean, the governor spent 8 years as lieutenant governor. And I tell people this all the time. The lieutenant governor's office is arguably, at times the most powerful position in the state. And so the governor, as lieutenant governor, pretty much had his way. He ruled the roost, so to speak. As governor, you kind of have to wait. In the executive branch, you wait for the speaker and the lieutenant governor, the rest of the legislature, to do his job. When Tate Reeves was lieutenant governor, agree with him or not, he was very decisive. He did what he thought he needed to do, and he didn't care what anybody thought about it. That creates some baggage, and there are people who still are resentful about some of the things that he did as lieutenant governor. Not that he did anything wrong, he didn't do it with them or the way they wanted, and so there are people who sort of have this feeling that the governor is about to get his comeuppance. I mean, I think the primary thing that people are concerned about is making sure we address this pandemic in the most effective way. But they don't mind the fact that the governor's a little bit chafed about the way we're doing it.
I guess if you want to put a good light on this or to find out anything that's good that comes out of this is that we get this personality conflict out of the way early on in the first year of the first session.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Paul. And sometimes that's what a crisis. Look, you get this personality out of the way. This crisis has created an environment where Democrats and Republicans have to find a way to work together, don't argue, and try to work going down the road. And I think that's going to be the mantra. I think that's going to be the atmosphere for quite some time, because we're going to spend at least the rest of the year having to be creative and deal with issues that we've never faced and deal with them in a way that we've never had to deal with them before.
True.
I mean, we won't be able to have a regular when we come back to the legislature, we won't be conducting business the same way. There'll be social distancing. I don't know if we have to platoon people in and out the way we did the last time, but that's going to that creates an environment where people have to learn how to be more patient with each other, more understanding, and that arguably that's a good thing.
As House Minority Leader and also an esteemed lawyer, what was your feelings when you were at that session on Friday at the Dome? I mean, it had to be a little bit surreal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was strange. We had, I think we had the entire, with the exception of maybe 7 or 8 people, the entire house there. But I may have actually laid eyes on 30 people because we were in separate rooms, moving in and out. And I left. I got texts and calls from people. Hey, how are you doing? I didn't see you. And were you there? And so it was very surreal. And so, but it was good to get back and start taking care of business like we need to.
All right, so once this happens and the money lands in the proper place that you want it to land, and the House and the Senate can start wrangling over this, what do you want?
Well, we want what everybody wants. We want to have effective policies for public education. For instance, we need to have there maybe ought to be a grant program to provide community schools and for high poverty district, where you can give more wraparound service, more social workers, counselors, parent training, things that you're going to have to do because kids won't be in the classroom so much. We'd like to see an effective policy towards broadband. Everybody keeps saying, how are we going to do it? It costs so much. Well, this is the kind of issue where government has to step in and say, look, hey, you utility companies who are fighting with each other, you got these right-of-way issues, you have territory, and you want somebody to pay for it. It's just like building a highway. Sometimes the public interest outweighs your private interest, and we want to compensate you for it, but maybe we got to step in and say, look, we're going to settle this broadband issue by opening it up and letting people who can efficiently provide it get out there and do it. So those
but you're not saying for the state to get into the broadband business, though.
No, I'm not saying for the state. I'm saying for the state to by law make to end the fight between the people who are competing for some of these issues, just to make it easier. No, we don't need to get into business. We need to make it easier for people to provide the service, whether it be AT&T, Co-op, C-Spire, whoever it is. We need to make it happen.
A couple of more questions. Can you hang on for a second?
Sure.
Do that with Robert Johnson coming back in just a moment. Hello, guest line. It is the Minority Leader, Robert Johnson, and thank you for holding on, sir. All right, when we talk about dispersing the funds, and I asked this one to the Speaker Pro Tem a few moments ago, to the fact of the RFPs out there that people are trying to, and again, today must be the deadline. He was talking about that today, and they'll wrap it up. $40 million to disperse these funds, $1.2 billion, where the state auditor says his office could do it for $1 million, retain the checks and balances, keep it within the state government. What's your thought on this?
I agree with the state auditor, and I agree with you, Paul. I think it's a great question. I mean, I don't know why we need. I constantly say, why are we contracting out things that we have people who are public servants or elected or agencies that we pay people every day to do, and I don't know why we can't do it. I mean, what is the difference between a $1.25 billion funding from the federal government and
Mhm.
say the $4 billion we get from Medicaid? Somebody administers that. We don't need to hire outside services to administer that. I mean, or the 50% of the education budget that comes from the federal government, or 50% of the transportation budget, and our agencies administer that. I think, and I think Auditor White has shown that he has the ability and the desire to make sure that public funds are used correctly. I think that would be. I think that's an excellent idea. I don't know why we'd have a private company.
Well, let me say this: $40 million. That number is going to resonate for a long time with people. Certainly, for a great number of people who don't have jobs anymore or on unemployment. Where the hell could you put $40 million other than giving it to somebody to disperse funds, other taxpayer dollars? And it is a
Well,
question that is, I think, resonating across the state. Go ahead.
look, one of the things that we are working on both sides of the aisle is that we want to make sure people have rental and housing assistance. That money could go to that. We want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we provide economic security to people who have lost their jobs, to subsidize small businesses who are trying to pay people who are not at work. That money could go to that. We want to make sure that we provide an adequate service for the Secretary of State for online voter registration. And whatever we have to do in the upcoming elections, we got all those things to do. It's a lot of money, but we really don't have money, I think, to waste. We got to make sure
Yeah.
that we do that. And I mean, if we have to have somebody administer the funds, I mean, I'm willing to listen and see if we don't have anybody else to do that. But I can't imagine I mean, we got agencies that literally run a state. And
Yes.
so I don't know
Yeah. I
what's different. Yeah.
You are right, because I was reading the text from, I think this was from Brandon Presley, I'm not sure, but there were several inquiries related to whether there were shut-off orders that'll expire 3/14, and I think he was consulting with the necessary people as far as their gas and water and lights
Yeah.
being shut off, and the shut-off date was going to expire 3/14 of that protective order. So $40 million would go a long way just helping some of these folks.
It would. And look, I'm an advocate for the individual and for the people out there who don't have
Mm-hmm.
representation. I want to make sure that people are taken care of. But I mean, and I think some utility companies and landlords and business people have been very accommodating. People have foregone rent payments. They've done a lot of things, but it's only so long all of these people can do that. And we got to be there to help. And that's something that, for instance, we sat down and talked to the speaker and the speaker pro tem. Those are things we agree on. We're trying to make sure that the people of Mississippi are taken care of and they can sustain
Okay.
themselves during this pandemic.
I'm told by some sources it's not 40 million, but if you compute it, so I've heard different numbers out there. I've heard 40 million, I heard 25 million, and now I'm being told it's only a million. So we'll figure
Well,
out
I mean, but the
exactly
question
what it
is
is.
why are we paying somebody to do it and when we already have people?
Outside,
If the
I
state
think that's a
can
good
do it,
question.
yeah, it does. I mean, it's not an issue
Yeah.
of how much. I mean, I mean, it's a legitimate question. I want to know why. If it turns out we have to, let's get it done. But if we don't have to, let's put our own folks to work.
1 million to the auditor. No, we know that. That's what the auditor said. He could do it for a million,
Yeah,
or less.
yeah.
We'll find out. As a matter of fact, I
Well,
think he's coming on the air soon, so we'll ask him.
the important thing is that the auditor says he can do it. That's good enough for me.
No. Final thoughts, sir.
Well, final thoughts is it just that this crisis, like any crisis, tends to bring people together. It sobers people up, and we get away from. We find out what we have more in common than what we have as differences, and that is one refreshing thing that comes out of this. And I'm looking forward to working with the speaker, the rest of the legislature, to take care of the business on behalf of the people of the state of Mississippi. And I think we're going to do our job. We're going to do it well.
I think one of the things you said, you're absolutely right. The governor's got a tough job, probably as tough as anybody since Katrina, and who knows, because this is going to be one that's lasting for a long time.
And we intend to work with him and bolster him and prop him up as much as possible. He's been in this by himself. We're ready to work with him and make everything better.
Robert, thank you, sir. It's always good. Pleasure seeing you. Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, call me again. You know I like talking.
This TV thing's working out pretty good, isn't it? We're getting to be pros on this.
Hey, I'm impressed with myself. I was scared I wouldn't be able to make this happen, but it worked out.
It does. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Good seeing you.
All right. Have a good